Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, pleasure to meet you. Before I start, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Novita Dewi Fitriani. I'm third semester college student in State Islamic University of Sayyid Ali Rahmatullah Tulung Agung. This video is proposed to submit my final examination task of speaking for academic interaction. Well, everyone, each country has its own characteristic, especially in distinctive clothes. As the generation of Indonesia, absolutely we know that kebaya, as I'm wearing now, is the national cloth for women in our country, which is often worn in national days. But do you know exactly about the definition of kebaya? How did it origins, and how has it been existed until now? Gratefully, I'm here to tell you all the answer about those questions. So let's get started. Let's begin with the definition of kebaya. Kebaya is etymologically derived from the Arabic word abaya, which means clothing. Kebaya is traditional blouse worn by Indonesian women with sarong, batik, or another knitted garment traditional. Kebaya itself has interesting origins. There are some opinions about the origins of kebaya. The first opinion is kebaya comes from Arabic, which was explained by Dennis Lambert. He is an historian who studied about Japanese culture. The second opinion, kebaya is come from Portuguese. It is written on notes that when Portuguese landed in South Asia, kebaya refers to top or blouses that were worn by Indonesian women during 15th or 16th century. The last opinion, kebaya is related to tunic clothing women during the Ming Dynasty in China. Kebaya is arrived in archipelago after large-scale migration from China. Well, ladies and gentlemen, apart from the history, now we move to what kebaya was like and how it is used in Indonesia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, apart from the history, now we move to what kebaya was like and how it is used in Indonesia. During the Dutch colonial period, kebaya was used as the official cloth for European women. At that time, kebaya just made from mori-woven material. Then in the 19th century, kebaya became everyday clothing for all social classes, both Japanese and Dutch freed women. In fact, kebaya had become the mandatory cloth for Dutch women who came to the Dutch East or Hindia Belanda, or as we know now is Indonesia. However, kebaya also experienced a decline in its status during this Japanese colonial period. At that time, kebaya was associated as clothing worn by nature women, prisoners, and forced laborers. This is very concerning, isn't it? But after all of dark time and difficult time passed, kebaya has rise in status. During the independence period, kebaya and batik cloth became symbols of struggle and nationalism. The value and status of the kebaya was risen again and used as a dress at official and state events. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have been talking about what kebaya was like in Dutch colonial, in Japanese colonial, and in the independence period. In those different periods, do you ever think of wonder of our kebaya style in those periods is just the same or is it different? Let's get the answer. The models of kebaya since use mori-woven materials from the Dutch era to independence era has changed until it divided into several types.
Number 1 is kebaya traditional. Kebaya traditional is the forerunner of kebaya in general. There are two types of traditional kebaya. There are kebaya Kartini and kebaya Kutu Baru. These two kebaya eventually developed into other kebaya, such as kebaya encim and modern kebaya. Number 2 is kebaya encim. From its name, we can think about the presence of Chinese middle-aged women. This kebaya is made from a fairly smooth fabric with a touch of borders, sequins and seams that it's adorn the one side. This model of kebaya is commonly used by ethnic Chinese women. Number 3 is kebaya modern. As the name implies, kebaya modern is kebaya with a more modern touch. The shape and pattern are not as absolute as the original kebaya. There have been changes in some parts of the kebaya, including in terms of accessories, patterns, and in the fashion began to follow the exciting trends. One example of kebaya modern is kebaya modifikasi. Many traditional fashion designers use modified kebaya.
Well, after learning about the history and variety of kebaya, some of you must be curious about the existing of kebaya right now. Well, kebaya has the meaning of alluring, interesting, beautiful, and enchanting. Apart from the history of ups and downs from its journey, kebaya has developed greatly.
Now, kebaya is developing not only as an official cloth. Many designers have made breakthrough by mixing and matching kebaya with subordinate accessories and more casual motifs. Therefore, kebaya is not only associated as old women's clothes, kebaya has expanded its use to teenagers as well. Of course, we have been heard a lot of news about the popularity of kebaya from Indonesia. Many domestic and foreign designers are interested in deepening their knowledge about studying and contributed their creativity with kebaya. The results of various and modern kebaya designs are often displayed or shows in fashion weeks.
As a part of independent history, the government has trying to preserve the kebaya by assigning it as the national Indonesian women's cloth. But there are so many examples of the preservation of kebaya, and as the Indonesian generation, it is important for us to know about it.
Apart from important days such as the Independence Day, kebaya is preserved in many ways. For example, the provision from the school for students to wear kebaya on Kartini's Day. We can also see many designers who modify kebaya to be a trendy model for teenagers so that it attracts their attention to wear it. Kebaya is also commonly used by graduation college students when they attending their graduation ceremony. One of them is Maudy Ayunda, who wear red kebaya Kutu Baru at her graduation day in Stanford University. Kebaya is also worn as traditional Japanese wedding dress by Indonesian people, and this is done from the generation to generation until now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are great examples for Indonesian people to love and preserve kebaya as a part of Indonesian culture. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for my video about kebaya. I hope you learned something new from it and enjoyed it. Akhirul kalam. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.